This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about Larry's inconsistent lady friends, fashion trends for criminals, and Myposian traditions of servitude. All that and more as we watch Season 2, Episode 5 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. My name is Imran. I'm one of your hosts. Joining me, my co-host and my sister from the same mister, it's Sophia. How's it going?
Hello. From the same Mr. and the same Mrs., in fact.
We are up to Season 2, Episode 5 of Perfect Strangers, a hilarious 80s sitcom we loved watching growing up and love watching again as adults.
Yep, and this episode is called Lifesavers, and the TV guide description back in the day said Larry soon regrets having saved his cousin's life when Balky, according to strict Myposian custom, becomes his servant.
Oh, Myposian customs. We're going to learn some traditions. I like this already.
Yes, this episode aired on October 22nd, 1986. And of course, stars Bronson Pinchot and Mark Lynn Baker. Let's get into it. Act 1.
Act 1 opens at Ritz, the awesome discount store that sells everything.
The mystery store.
The mystery store where Balky and Larry work. It opens with Twinkasetti going through his mail, and Balky and Larry enter, and what color sweater is he wearing there, Sophia?
Oh, it's green. I think, I don't know, the wardrobists just always put Larry in these greens and blues.
And reds. We'll see red later.
We'll see red a little bit later. Okay, solid colors, but he's wearing a green sweater.
Green again.
They come in, and Balky's very excited. He's running around, and he tells Twinkasetti that Cousin Larry did a great thing.
What?
Cousin Larry just saved Balky's life from a runaway taxi.
Oh, my God.
He said there was a runaway taxi that was about to run away over me, and Larry pushed him out of harm's way. Out of reflex.
Balky says, you risk your life to save another. And then he turns to Twinkasetti and he goes, in Mypos, he would be considered a very great man. Twinkasetti goes, this is America. Here, he's still considered a jerk.
Classic Twinkasetti meaning line.
Twinkasetti dig as he exits the scene and exits to his office. But Balky tells Larry, you are a hero, Cousin Larry.
And Larry says, well, maybe a small hero. Balky says, no, cousin, take it from me. You're a big one.
You're a big one, cousin.
So in Mypos, if somebody did what Larry just did, Balky says he is no longer a regular person. He is lived up to Primodopoulos.
I love Larry's reaction. He just looks at him and goes, oh, and smiles and just walks away. Here is an instance of Myposian sounding very Greek. Primodopoulos sounds like, I think I went with the Primodopoulos kids in high school. There was Stephen Primodopoulos and
Mypos is in the Mediterranean. It is a Greece-like place, but it's
sometimes Myposian sounds Arabic or Hebrew. Sometimes it's Greek.
It could be anything. That's the beauty of a fictional Mediterranean island. It could be anything.
And then we get our first little physical comedy bit. It's kind of funny. Balky states he's just a lowly sheep herder as he slowly falls to his knees in the middle of the store and falls back into a back bend. His top of his head touches the floor behind him and his arms are out to the side and back, and he's very flexible.
Yes, this is definitely a yoga pose that I once was able to do in my youth and can no longer do because my knees are old.
Looks like a really satisfying stretch he's in. What is he doing? He says, I'm basking in your glory, Cousin Larry.
Twinkasetti comes back out of the office. He pauses. He just looks at Balky on the floor, looks at Larry with this expression on his face that's like, what is this all about? But it's all unspoken.
Yeah.
And Larry says he's basking in my glory.
Twinkie barks, get up or get out as he heads out the door. Perfect Twinkasetti bark. And then some more physical comedy is Larry's just frantic and wants to get Balky up off the floor, and he's trying to pull him as Balky just goes limp. And he's not helping at all.
No, it's a custom of my people. Larry's like, get up. And Larry says, it's a custom of my people to earn a living. And my custom is bigger than your custom. Now get up. And he's trying to pull Balky up to his feet. And Balky's like, okay. And Larry says, okay. And Balky says, but inside I'm still basking like
I'm
crazy.
still basking like crazy. Yeah, Balky goes limp like a protester. It's amazing.
Yeah.
He's just, you can't move him. Civil disobedience, nonviolent. Later that evening, we cut to later that evening in the apartment. And oh my God, Sophia, it appears Susan is back. Susan and Larry just had a dinner date. What is going on?
Hold on. Susan and Larry had a dinner date. What happened to Jennifer?
What happened to Bonnie Kleinschmidt also?
Bonnie Kleinschmidt was a jerk and stood him up, so forget about her. But Larry, not long ago, said he needs Jennifer. He wants Jennifer. He's going to spend the rest of his life with Jennifer. And now Susan is back.
And now he's having dinner with Susan. So Susan, this is okay. So more interesting things happen. Susan makes a comment that Balky is a great cook. Of course, Larry is embarrassed. He's like, I'm embarrassed that Balky cooked for us. But Susan's trying to let him know, like he's trying to say thank you. He just saved his life. And now we get some more Myposian traditional rules. And just like, remember the Myposian apology tradition?
Yep.
Before, where the apologizer's head has to be lower. Now it's reversed. Balky's head must remain below the Primadopoulos' head all the time. And Larry has a great line. He goes, every time I turn around, there he is, right below my face. It's so funny.
And Larry says he can deal with being served to respect Balky's culture for a couple of days. He's like, fine, I'll put up with it for a couple of days. Susan turns to leave. She gives Larry a little peck on the cheek.
What? She kisses him on the cheek.
See you later, hero.
Okay, hold on. So she gives him a peck on the cheek and she says, see you later, hero. First of all, it's kind of it's a turn on to be a hero. I can see.
Yeah.
Maybe she's more attracted to him in this moment. But was there supposed to be a thing with Larry and Susan after all, or is this just a friendly peck on the cheek?
I think it seemed like a friendly peck. And here's my hunch. Maybe they recorded these episodes out of order and they aired out of order or like in perpetuity. They got reordered or something.
It happens. This may have been shot before all the Jennifer and Marianne stuff that's clearly going to come later in the season.
In 1986, no one had any idea that we would have streaming services.
Continuity goes out the window,
40 years
people.
later.
I was shocked to see Susan, and I believe that is the final Susan appearance, right? Let's maybe.
We'll find out.
I thought we were done with her last season.
We'll find out.
Anyways, Susan exits, and she just told him she's a hero.
By the way, what's Larry wearing in this scene?
Oh, he's got an awesome. It's like I think you describe this primary colors, plaid, multicolor squares of like greens and reds and blues.
It was a very 80s look. I feel like I remember that exact pattern on things like I had a scrunchie or something, or maybe a shirt with the same pattern.
It also looks like a picnic tablecloth.
Yeah.
What did you have on the
multicolored with pleated pants.
Anyways, Susan just called him a hero and she leaves, and Larry kind of turns to himself and he goes, she's right. I did save his life. If he wants to serve me, who am I to complain? Who am I to stand in the way of his culture? Who am I talking to? And he looks around, which I think this part is so hilarious because it's so self-aware, and the characters are often caught in monologues, and you're like, who is this person talking to right now?
Yeah, exactly. Larry sits on the sofa with a book that he's in the middle of, and in the back we see the door to Larry's bedroom open, and Balky comes out of the bedroom, but he's in a squat in order for his head to be lower than Larry's, and he does this like duck walk, his duck squat walk over to Larry.
The squat walk is hilarious.
It's very funny to watch, very physical. Again, he's very flexible.
Yes, he is.
You have to be young with healthy knees to do this.
He's like low squat, and then he's like walking like it's good hip flexors on Bronson
and healthy knees.
Healthy knees.
So
too.
Anyway, he's carrying, as he squat walks over, a bathrobe and Larry's slippers all neatly tied up in a bundle. And he says, I brought you your robe and slippers. I ironed them. And Larry's like, you ironed my slippers? And he goes, tough to get a crease. They're like these leather slippers that he holds up.
And he puts, but he's like, anything for the Primadopoulos. Balky wants to know if there's anything else he could do for Larry. Larry just wants to finish his mystery book. He's reading a mystery novel, and Balky's just sitting there squatting in front of him, looking for ways to annoyingly help, like pick up the lamp and hold it by his head.
Flipping the pages for him.
He tries to flip the pages before Larry's done. And Larry's just getting more and more annoyed. And Larry says he can't go to bed until he finishes this book.
Yeah, he says, I just want to finish this book so I can go to bed. And Balky, you can see like a light bulb go off. Wait a minute, you can't go to bed until you finish this book? And Larry says, that's right. And then Balky says, the great Aunt Phoebe did it.
Oh, no.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, my God, the number one faux pas. Balky just spoils the book.
And he says she did not have to be in a wheelchair. She used to get up at night, dress like a man, and stab relatives. And Larry's like, what the...
Well, Larry slowly, he flips to the back of the book, reads a couple of lines, and his head goes up. He goes, that's right. He tosses the book to the side. And Balky's like, good, now you can go to bed. Oh, my God.
Balky thinks he's helping him because he's like, now you can go to bed. You don't have to stay up.
That's the worst. Have you ever had anything spoiled? I remember when the Harry Potter books came out and then people were rude and they would drive by the lines and they would yell out the spoilers. So,
Did that happen?
Yeah, it's so mean. People were messing with Harry Potter fans. But, well, look, he saved him like 100 pages of reading. What do you got? So
now Larry is getting really annoyed. This is too much for him. He doesn't want to do the head thing anymore. He doesn't want Balky to keep his head lower than his. Turns out that rule is optional. So Balky reluctantly stands up. Larry insists, like, let's not do the head thing. Larry just wants to watch TV, so Balky leaves him alone. But as on his way away, he goes behind him on the couch and he tries to do a quick squat to lower his head again. But Larry somehow senses it from behind him. And he's like, ah.
That's how you correct dogs, by the way. When they do something wrong, you go, hey, and then they learn, I'm not supposed to do that.
So Balky pops back up and then Larry starts watching TV. Balky goes to the kitchen and he picks up a bowl and an electric hand mixer and is like mixing something and it's making a loud in a bowl. It's making a loud noise, buzzing noise.
That's not annoying at all. What is he making? Is he making a cake?
It looks like he's making a cake, but we find out later it's not.
Larry is obviously annoyed because he's trying to watch his Western or whatever. He goes, Balky, come here. And Balky steps forward with the bowl of mixer going.
With the bowl
he goes, no, closer. Balky steps forward. He goes, no, closer. Balky takes another step and the plug gets pulled and the thing turns off and Larry goes, close enough. And he goes, what are you doing? Balky goes, I'm making your lunch for tomorrow. Sheep Wellington.
Wellington.
This is a famous Myposian dish by Chef Gordon Ramsay. He makes sheep Wellington all the time.
But what is he mixing in the bowl for? Even like a beef Wellington is like beef covered in like a pastry dough, right?
So maybe he's making the dough to wrap around the sheep Wellington?
Maybe. It looked like cake batter.
Don't eat Dimitri, Balky. Well, and then so Larry goes, well, thank you. And then Larry asks the question we've all been waiting for him to ask. He goes, Balky, how long does this Primadopoulos thing go on? Balky looks over innocently and just goes, forever. And Larry has a pained look. He is stuck in a predicament.
Act 2 starts later that evening. Larry is asleep on the couch in that same shirt and ensemble, and Balky is creeping in carrying some rope. He sneaks around and he ties Larry's foot. He puts one loop of the rope around Larry's foot, the other loop around the leg of the side table.
First of all, how creepy is that to see Balky with a rope? I thought he was going to like bound and gag Larry. I'm like, what? He has a sinister look on his face too. Like, what are you about to do, Balky? And the first time when he tied it to the table, I was like, what are you doing? What is going on? Where he stands up all proud and then looks at Larry, but then does a double take and looks worried. And this gets really strange.
Yeah, so then he goes right in close. He leans in. He places his head on Larry's chest to check his heartbeat. Apparently, he didn't hear anything or feel anything. So he runs to the kitchen. He gets like a lid from a pot, like a shiny metal stainless steel lid. He shines it with his shirt. Then he holds it under Larry's nose to check for breath. And then you see his face get concerned because he didn't see any breath on the pot lid. So he pulls open both of Larry's eyelids forcibly, and then Larry screams, and then Balky screams.
He thought he was dead. This is hilarious. Like he just jumped. I love jump to conclusion, Balky. And then we get a great Larry catchphrase with the "Don't you ever do that again." And Balky goes, "Don't worry," because he's as freaked out as Larry is right now.
Yeah, in this instance, they're both panicked and freaked out and frantic. And Larry goes, "What were you doing?" And it's frantic Larry face. And Balky says, "Trying to see if you were alive." And Larry says, "Well, obviously I am." And Balki says, and that makes me happier than a tick on a sheepdog.
Tick on a sheepdog,
So
Sophia.
let's stop here. I have this thing where I've always thought this word sheepdog is so funny. And
Sheepdog.
it's funny to hear it here. And the reason this is a side story. The reason I find it funny is once upon a time, many years ago, I was living in Uzbekistan, a country in the former Soviet Union, and I was learning Russian and Uzbek and other things, and I had these dictionaries, and one night I was sitting there and some teenage girls were around, locals, and they took my Russian English dictionary and they flipped through it to find a word, and then in English they were like, sheepdog, and they all started laughing, like cracking up and they just kept saying ovcharka. Sheepdog. Ovcharka. Sheepdog. And to this day, I don't know if there's like some other innuendo in Russian about the word ovcharka.
Yeah.
Or something but to me, I just keep hearing that every time I hear sheepdog and it makes me laugh.
It's a funny word.
Sheepdog.
Sheepdog. And then we get a great comedy bit. Remember the rope I was just confused about, listener?
Yes.
We get a hilarious bit where Larry starts to get up and he starts to walk around the end table, almost to the end of the length of the rope where he'll get taught. But then Balki asks him a question, at which point Larry turns around, walks back, answers the question. Then it happens again. And the second time he's about to go, Balki interrupts him again with another question. Larry finally walks back. And of course, things come in three. So the third time he's walking, Larry goes, look, Balki, I know you're only trying to take care of me, and I appreciate the thought, but this has got to come to an end. And at the end of that sentence, Larry gets to the end of the rope and goes flying down, face first, disappearing behind the sofa.
Larry is
off
pissed.
his feet.
He gets up, he gets composed, follows the rope back, places his foot on the end table, and he says, why am I tethered to the table? And Balki says, so that you can't walk in your sleep and fall out the window. Makes sense in a way. And then he says, pretty smart, huh?
Pretty smart, huh?
Larry says, Balki, what are the chances of me walking in my sleep and falling out the window? And Balki says, now? No chance.
No chance at all. You're tied up. I love how he goes, why am I tethered to the table? There's a little pause and the look on his face. He's just had it. So Larry unties himself. He goes, I'm going to bed. He says goodnight to Balki. Balki says goodnight. Larry heads for his bedroom. And Balki quietly steps in pace right behind him, following him. Halfway, Larry stops in the hallway, stops and turns around like he senses somebody behind him. And of course, Balki also stops and rotates perfectly around Larry, looking, and they're both looking back, looking for something. Larry doesn't see Balki, and then he turns back, continues walking into his bedroom. Balki follows right into the bedroom. The door closes. You hear a beat, and then you hear Balki. And then Balki comes flying out the bedroom. Give the dude a little space, Balki. I know he's the Primadopoulos.
Then we cut to the next scene. We're back at Ritz, and we have a song alert. Song and dance alert.
Yeah.
Balki is sweeping the floor at Ritz, and he's singing Material Girl, except he sings boy instead of girl, and he's sweeping and dancing. We are living in a material world. And I am a material boy.
Madonna's 1984 hit, of course. Great song. I love that song. I love early Madonna.
And he does like this little step ball change, turn around. It's very cute. Larry walks in to the store in a rage. He's furious because he is now 2 hours late for work because Balki had turned off his alarm.
Oh, no.
Because he wanted to let Larry sleep in. But Larry says he's never been late to anything in his life. He was, in fact, even born 3 weeks early.
Of course he was. Twinkie said he walks out of his office and, of course, notices Larry was late. He's like, I'm docking you 2 hours pay, Appleton. Larry looks madly at Balki. He gives him that look, and Balki's like, don't you give me that face yet. Balki steps over to Twinkie said he goes, okay, Twink, 2 hours. What is it, huh? A few paltry dollars? Take it out of my salary.
He says paltry
He says
dollars.
a few paltry dollars. He goes, what is it, huh? A few paltry dollars. Take it out of my salary. To which Twink replies, that is your salary.
That is your salary. So Larry has now had it with this whole Primadopoulos thing.
Primadopoulos.
He gets Balki to confirm whatever he says goes. He's like, I'm the Primadopoulos. Anything I say goes, right? And Balki says, yes. He says, okay, then you cannot serve me anymore.
Uh-oh.
And Balki did not see this coming. This is like not an option on Mypos. He says, but if I can't serve you, that means I failed. And if I failed the Primadopoulos, then I'm a Nebulopolos.
Nebula. He makes a really dirty face too, like a nasty face when he says it. Nebulopolis. And Larry goes, "You'll get over it. Sticks and stones." Balky goes, "That's just exactly what they throw at Nebulopoli."
Yes. So he is very disheartened. It's a great failure for him.
There's a lot of traditions where you have to cover your head in Mypos, and this is one of them because Balky says he's a disgrace. He can't show his face. He grabs a canvas sack that's on the counter, puts it over his head, and returns sweeping, singing a new song now, Sophia.
Yes, he starts singing the old spiritual, "Nobody knows the trouble I see."
This song goes back to the 1860s, and you always hear this when somebody is sad or sorrowful. It's in so many, and it's like the cliche song to go to show the said character is sad or imprisoned or mournful. I remember the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He sang it for some reason. He got grounded.
Yes, I mean it shows up on shows all the time. It's a classic old slave spiritual.
And that was the end of Act 2. Act 3 opens later at Ritz, and Bucky still has the bag on his head, and Larry and Twinkaseti are watching him stack shirts on the table, and Larry's like, he's actually getting pretty good at that. And then Twinkaseti steps up to him and goes, "Turnip, I like the look, but it's scaring away customers. Why don't you go into the basement and sort out pants by color?" Bucky says thank you and walks away, and Twink is disappointed because he's not even fun to abuse anymore. All the joy has been removed from Balky, and now Twinkaseti, it's even affecting him.
So Twinkaseti proposes an idea to Larry. He says he has a friend who's an actor. Why don't you just hire him to break into the apartment, make a little noise, wake up the turnip, and then run like hell? He thinks he saved your life, and then you'll be even. Larry starts laughing in his face, but then realizes that Twinkaseti is actually serious.
Oh,
he
you mean
means
it?
Well. And Larry declines the offer, and Twinkaseti says, "It's up to you. You're the primapotamus."
Primapotamus. Then he asks him, "How much will this cost?" Apparently, it will cost $50. There's that amount again. $50, which now that we know, thanks to listener Rabia, is about $118 in 2020 money. Thank you, Rabia. But Larry goes, 50? I wouldn't be asking him to do King Lear. Just then, Balky walks in with a bag on his head, knocks over a bunch of stuff, and leaves. And Larry just whips out his money. He starts counting out dollar bills. He goes, "Have him come before midnight. I don't want to be up late." He's had it. He's paying the $50.
Larry exits the scene to go help Balky find the basement, and Twinkaseti gets on the phone to call his friend Jimmy for the job. And we hear this side of the phone conversation. It turns out that Jimmy is in New York.
What?
Doing what? Doing King Lear.
Of course, there's the King Lear. I love how they did the callback to the King Lear joke.
That's great. Twinkaseti just pockets the money. He's like, "All right, good for me."
He's like, "No message. You know what? His loss, my gain." And he's just going to stiff Larry and leave him hanging. Why would you make first of all, why would you listen to Twinkaseti and go along with this idea? Larry's an idiot. We cut to later in the evening, middle of the night, and Balky is fast asleep on the sofa bed
with the bag on his head.
And Dimitri, did you notice? Dimitri also has a paper bag on his head.
That is so funny.
It's so adorable.
Why is Dimitri in shame?
I don't know. It's a sympathy shaming. Just out of sympathy.
Then we see Larry in his bedroom, and he's impatiently looking at the clock, this old-timey alarm clock that he has in his hand. The actor is late. The fake burglar is late. He's not there yet. He's shaking his leg. He's waiting for this guy to show up. Then we see outside the window on the fire escape a dude with a sack and a red hat. He opens the window. He comes into the apartment. And he starts putting things into his sack. He starts taking things.
Well, now this is not Jimmy. Jimmy's in New York doing King Lear. This is odd.
Larry doesn't know that yet. So Larry walks straight up to him upset. And he's like, "Where have you been?" The man is like, "What's happening right here?" Because this guy, of course, doesn't know that Larry's waiting for an actor. Yeah. And Larry says, "You were supposed to be here by midnight." And the man says, I work my own hours. And he's confused. Larry grabs the bag from the man. He looks at it. He says, "You're not supposed to take things." And the man's like, "That's what I do." And he takes the bag back, and Larry's like, okay, nice touch. And then he's still criticizing him. He's like, look at your outfit. Whoever heard of a burglar wearing a baseball cap? And he pulls the cap off the guy's head and the guy snatches it back.
And I love this. All right, Larry goes, look, let me go over it again. You come through the window, you wake him up, threaten me. When he asks what's going on, you scream in terror, beg him not to hurt me, and you run. You think you can handle that? And the guy goes, what is this, some kind of a hospital or something?
This man is very confused about what's he's just trying to rob this apartment.
He's like, what's going on here? So good.
So Larry still thinks this man is the actor. He turns on the light, first of all. He goes over to wake up Balky, and he shakes him awake. And he's like, oh no. And he pulls the bag off of Balky's head. He's like, Balky, it's a burglar. If only someone with courage would jump up and save us. Wait a minute. And now he like pulls him out of bed. They're doing that classic, like gripping each other by the chest of the shirt, facing each other position. He says, wait a minute. What about you? You can do it, Balky. And Balky sort of looks past Larry's shoulder and says, don't be ridiculous. He's got a gun.
Uh-oh. And then, they cut to a wide shot, and the guy is behind him holding a revolver on him. And Larry's like,
pistol.
Larry's like, he's not supposed to have a gun. He steps up to him. The guy shows it to him. He notices it real. And suddenly, it dawns on Larry that this is a real burglar. And this is not Jimmy from Tweakacetti.
Jimmy. So Larry raises his hands. He gets very nervous. He's like, don't shoot, please. I'm barely in my mid-20s. I've never been skiing. I didn't mean to offend you. I love your hat.
Mid-20s. You look a lot older, Mark Lindbaker. The burglar tells Larry to shut up and pushes Larry back towards Balky. Towards Balky goes, you can't do that to Cousin Larry. He starts to get mad. The burglar shoves him again. Balky goes, you do that again, you're in big trouble, mister. The burglar shoves them again, and Larry and Balky both fall backwards on the sofa bed. Larry's sitting on Balky. They go down, they bounce right back up. Balky goes, if you do that one more time, I'm not responsible. The burglar rolls his eyes, pushes them down again. They go down, they bounce back up again. Balky goes, why do you keep doing that?
Why do you keep doing that?
And burglar goes, because I'm the one that's got the gun.
And I imagine that this was one of these physical comedy scenes that they tried real hard to do in one take in front of the live audience, because you can see Bronson Pinchot's face trying not to laugh very hard.
Well, I love the fourth time where it's like, why do you keep doing that?
So then Balky, the burglar says, I'm the one who's got the gun, and Balky in a split second just goes, give me that, and he grabs the gun.
Holy
he just
moly.
takes the gun from the burglar's hand.
Oh my God. The crowd goes wild. They're just like,
they're like, oh shoot.
and now Balky's got the gun drawn on Larry and the burglar. And he goes, all right, Buster, reach for the friendly skies. Which now he's confused two things again. Reach for the skies and fly the friendly skies.
Yes.
United Airlines slogan.
Now it's Balky on one side aiming the gun, and Larry's in front of the burglar on the other side. They both have their hands up, and Balky says, you can put your hands down now. And they both put their hands down. And Balky says, not you. And they both put the hands back up. He was talking to the burglar, but they both did it. And then there's this very funny line where Balky says, down yours, up yours.
I love that line. That's great.
They're very confused.
And they're both like putting their arms up and down. Down yours, up yours.
But then Balky just grabs Larry, pulls him over to the other side. So it's the two of them facing off against the burglar with Balky holding the gun. And he looks at the burglar and he says, what your name is? And the guy goes, John Doe. And he says, put your hand out. And he's super confused. The burglar puts his hands out, and Balky slaps the man's fingers. And he goes, shame on you, John Doe, breaking into other people's houses and taking things that don't belong to you. And then he goes into like Myposian lecture mode.
He's so upset he slips into Myposian.
Yes.
And he's just yelling at him like an old Eastern aunt.
Yes.
He goes, call the police, cousin. Larry goes, oh, you bet I will. But instead of going for the telephone, Larry passes the telephone, goes out to the fire escape, just starts going, help, police,
Help, police.
as he crawls out of the fire escape. Stupid Larry.
Gag.
Classic. And now it's time for the final scene, lesson time, Sophia.
Lesson time. So the next scene opens with Balky and Larry returning to the apartment from the police station. And Balky said he has fun. They gave him an ice cream cone. They took his fingy prints, as he said, and we see that his hands are covered in black ink. Larry tells him, don't touch anything until you wash your hands. And Larry's like, I'm going to go to bed. And Balky says, wait, let me warm up your bed. And Larry says, no, this is over. And Balky's about to say, okay, well, I'm going to put the bag back on my head. And Larry says, don't you realize what you've done? You saved my life. You are a hero. What you did took guts.
Balky asks, am I as brave as you? And then Larry goes, oh, I'm way down here. And he puts his hand down. And then he goes, you're way, way. And he has his hand up and he looks at Balky and suddenly realizes this is going to be problematic. And he just puts his hands level. He's like, nope, we're even. Couple of prima double same level. 2 peas in a pod, which was a smart move on Larry's part to just nip it in the bud, because now you're going to swing it the other way. You still got problems.
And so then here's the lesson. Larry explains to Balky that when you care about somebody, you will push them out of harm's way. And that's what a hero does. And Balky very innocently and lovingly says, wait, you care about me? And he's very touched. And Larry nods. And then Balky gets very excited and he says, I care about you too. And he goes and he hugs Larry tightly. And Larry says, well, thank you for the service and for saving my life, and good night. And they say good night. Balky smiles. Larry turns to walk to his bedroom, and we see that there are 2 black handprints on his back. And Balky sees it too, and he's in shock, and he puts his hand up to his mouth and gets ink all over his face as well.
Now his face is all
final
dirty.
Gag, and roll credits.
So I noticed there's a little error, kind of an Easter egg of when they come back in, when he's wearing the red shirt and he hangs up the coat, he turns and you can kind of see like half of one black handprint on the back before, because obviously it was already there.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
so
I didn't catch that.
I was like, oh, you can kind of see it there. Fun episode, though. I can't believe Balky grabbed the gun. That was the craziest part. And I don't recommend that as a defense
Even
move.
though he was the one who was like, don't be ridiculous, he's got a gun. So he knows the gravity of a gun, but he just sort of grabbed it.
Adrenaline. Let's see what happens when adrenaline happens. Did you notice a couple of comments on the episode, Sophia? Did you notice the canvas bag that he had on his head was a bag that said Chinatown, Los Angeles, California, which they were selling in a store in Chicago. Discount store.
The store in Chicago that is a set in Los Angeles.
That's actually sold in Los Angeles.
We see another reference to $50. That seems to be Twinkassetti's favorite number. Every time there's money involved, it's $50. We saw it before as well. When, for example, in the episode where Twinkassetti bet Larry that Balky wouldn't be able to get his driver's license, that was $50. Yep. Where he hired Duke Lyle to play baseball on the Ritz Discount Royals team. That was $50. So this $50.
Also, remember when he's like, how do you get a date, Twinkassetti? He's like, offer $50.
Yeah.
So he loves the number $50. And the burglar was played by actor Rafael Morrow. He has since appeared in episodes of Night Court. He showed up in Seinfeld. He was in Desperate Housewives. He's also written several books of monologues for young people, focusing on self-esteem and achievement. Good for him. Good. He's
That's funny because you have to have a lot of self-esteem to have the guts to rob an apartment.
To be a burglar.
Okay, so the subject of this episode where somebody saves someone's life and then the latter person is forever indebted is kind of a common TV trope, isn't it? Oh,
yes, it is. An age-old cliche has been done several times. I'm sure the listener, probably some episodes have popped to mind of other TV shows. For example, remember in the Brady Bunch, in the episode My Brother's Keeper, Bobby saves Peter from a falling ladder and then subsequently exploits his sense of indebtedness and takes advantage of him. Peter takes advantage of Bobby.
Also in The Odd Couple, which is another classic buddy TV comedy,
buddy sitcom.
Oscar saved Felix from falling out of their window. And then
I'm pretty sure the same thing happens.
Same thing happened.
Well, Oscar and Felix are a lot like Larry and Balky, if you think about it, opposite.
Yeah.
Completely opposite. In Gilligan's Island, the final season episode of Gilligan's Island is a great example. Gilligan saves a drowning native girl. I guess the native girl showed up in the last episode.
There were natives on Gilligan's Island?
Only on the very last episode, because if they were, they would have gotten off that damn island really quick. But I guess in the last episode, big twist. Oh, there's other people on the island. So he saves a drowning native girl. She becomes his slave. for life in return.
Gilligan's Island was like the cutesy version of Lost.
So it was the sitcom version of Lost. He has to fake his own death so he doesn't have to deal with it in that one. But you will find this in Game of Thrones, The West Wing, MASH, The Fugitive, Greatest American Hero, Big Bang Theory, Star Trek.
And of course, a classic episode of a more contemporary show, Seinfeld.
It reminded me of this line I always say out of context because it's hilarious. And it is the episode of Seinfeld where, towards the end of the season, Jerry has sold his show about his show in the show. And then they filmed the show Seinfeld on the show Seinfeld. It's so wild and meta, a show within a show. But the plot of that episode is there's like a fender bender and a court, and the judge decrees the guy to be Jerry's butler. But all I remember is this one line, and I'll just randomly say it. When Jerry goes, "Because he's my butler." Felt proud.
Okay, so not exactly the exact same trope, no. But this idea of indebtedness is there. We have some classic Balkyisms in this episode. We have "Don't be ridiculous" is said twice. We have a Larryism. "Don't you ever, ever do that again." Balky does a classic twice.
Of course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
There you go.
And then as far as Perfect Strangers today, Sophia, this was kind of a hard one.
This was a hard one. If anyone has thoughts, please feel free to let us know. Perfect Strangers today is where we try to imagine if this story took place today, how would things be different?
The only thing I came up with is if you're going to full service concierge someone like Balky wants to do to Larry, you need an iPad, you need apps, you need Larry's Find My Phone thing turned on. Location services must be turned on all devices because you could just track where Larry goes. You could pre-order edible arrangements and buy his meal before he goes wherever he's going throughout the day. Balky could even hack into street cameras, just follow him around just to make sure he's okay.
Speaking of cameras, if this story happened today, there would probably be some kind of alarm system or doorbell camera. But so they live in an apartment,
and Larry would have turned it off because he was expecting a dude.
That's right.
But I love
very clever writing.
I just love how conveniently this dude decides to break in the exact night, this exact apartment where they're waiting for someone to break in. Of course, we wouldn't have an episode if that didn't happen. And what burglar didn't cover his face. I thought that was interesting. Usually they cover your face. Is that a Perfect Strangers today? These days, burglars cover their face. They're not all willy-nilly like they were in the past.
Also, he showed up at night, and I think in my experience getting
show up during
burgled,
the day.
Usually the burglar stakes out the house a little bit and finds out when people are not there.
Broad daylight, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because everybody is left, but now everybody's working from home, so I bet burglars are all
burglars are out of business now, aren't they?
They're like, what am I supposed to
know what
rob?
they're doing now? They're stealing packages from your doorstep.
Oh my God, they are. Can I tell you?
That's a big thing.
Hold on. First of all, we have a Ring camera, and when you have that, our whole neighborhood has Ring cameras.
Yeah.
And in the Ring app, they throw up these notifications, right? So one day I open my notification. There's literally 4 different videos from 4 different people, all showing the same white van and this lady calmly park in front, come up, take the packages, go back, move on to the next house.
In your neighborhood?
In our neighborhood. And it's each video, same van, same lady.
Oh,
and it was
did she get
lady.
caught?
She must have. I mean, the cops just got to log into Ring. They're right there doing it, getting caught. It was amazing.
So that's something that would happen in this episode today. This would be all over their Nextdoor app. That's where I see it.
Yes.
The conversation on the Nextdoor app about burglars taking package theft.
Well, so Larry could fake that. He could fake someone stealing a package for Balky, and then Balky saves it, and then that's how he gets his redemption.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there. We just did PS today. I had nothing.
Okay, now it's time for some shout-outs.
Yay, shout-outs.
Shout-outs. We have Justin E. Parsons, listener Justin Parsons, who is at Bassmanhec, BASSMANHEC. He tweeted us at Dance of Joy Pod, just made it to season 5. So many different hairstyles so far in the show, which is all Bronson Pinchot compared to Marklin Baker and his one style. So Justin is a little bit ahead of us in our show. he does make a good point. As we watch the show, we'll find out Balky's hairstyles change quite a bit. Mark Lynn Baker just has the one, although Mark Lynn Baker's does change a little bit too, but we'll talk about that when it happens.
The majesty of Balky's coif as it evolves is got to be. And plus,
great hair.
It's the 80s and the 90s. So, sometimes it's like big hair, sometimes it's small hair. I made friends with a Twitter account at TV Tangents Pod. It is a Twitter account for this TV Tangents podcast. I noticed they were doing an episode or two about Perfect Strangers. So I liked it. I retweeted it. I followed them. They followed us. And then they retweeted our post saying, okay, now we know this podcast exists and we're 100% here for it.
Nice.
Which is awesome. Got me very excited. So TV Tangents Podcast, check them out, listener. Their description is two funny ladies doing a retro TV podcast and hyperbolizing. How do you say that?
Hyperbolizing about life. Two funny ladies doing a retro TV podcast and hyperbolizing about life.
I can't say that word.
Check them out. TV Tangents Pod.
We support any show talking Balky and Larry, of course.
Oh, very nice. Thank you so much, TV Tangents Pod.
Boston should joke more.
Yes, they should.
Prima doubleizing. Prima doubly. Anyways, listener, that's going to take us to the end of the show. Next week,
we're going to Vegas, baby.
Vegas. It's called
Vegas.
Babes in Toyland. So I'm anticipating some gambling and some crazy Vegas shenanigans.
I can't wait. I've never been to Vegas, but
you've never been? Me neither.
Not yet.
I hear it's
someday.
Crazy place.
Thank you so much for listening today. Please do get in touch. You can visit danceofjoypod.com for all the links to our shows on all the platforms. And you can find our show, of course, on all podcast apps. And please listen, like, subscribe. Leave us a rating if you want. You can review us on Apple Podcasts.
Get in touch. You can send us an email or send your voice. If you visit our website, there's a little button in the lower right. It's a little microphone. And on your phone or your desktop, real easy to send a message. You know what, listener? Send us your best Balky impersonation. How about that?
What are we talking about?
Give me your best. Don't be ridiculous. And, we'll rate them. We'll love all of them.
And if you're like me and you hate the sound of your own voice, I know that's funny because we're doing a podcast, but if you are, you can also just send us an email at danceofjoypod@gmail.com or send us a tweet on Twitter, or a message on Facebook. We're on all the socials at Dance of Joy Pod.
Speaking of social, listener, do us a favor, share this show on your socials. Share it with people IRL. Do the Dance of Joy in front of people, and then make them subscribe to the show. We'll be your friends for life. Thanks for listening this week.
Now we are so happy we do the Dance of Joy.
Hey.